This is getting to be so good, I'd like to have members of my family have a copy of this if that's possible.
Oh yeah, that's what I planned on doing. Yeah.
Well, it's, if I was to say it was it's 7 or 7, 28, 25.
Yep.
That is July 28, 1925.
1925. That's cool.
What day of the week was it? Do you know that?
Oh, I don't know that. I know my mother said it was awful hot.
So,
The 28th of July is the hot time of the year.
alright. Let's see. Why were you given your first and middle names if you haven't lived?
My first name was given to John because my father's name was John, my grandfather's name was John, his father's name was John, his father's name was John. Goes back about 7 or 8 generations of John Stahle.
Cool.
So they gave it to me, but my mother felt like there was too many Johns in my case, and so they wanted me to be named Howard. And Howard is my grandmother's maiden name. She was a Howard. So that way I'm tied in with the Stahles and the Howards in my genealogy.
Okay. Where were you born?
I was born in my grandmother's house, which is right down there, really, if you wanted to measure it. Not too far,
In Bountiful?
in Woods Cross.
In Woods Cross. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. A lot of people were born in the houses back in those days.
Yeah.
What was your first, like, what's your first, like, most vivid memory that you had? As far back as you can think.
First vivid memory. Well, I remember my parents used to go to my grandmother's house. We lived in Bountiful, and she lived down here, so it's a few miles apart, Bountiful to Woods Cross. And they didn't have heaters in those old cars, and so they used to put blankets on us and wrap them around our knees until we got home. It was cold. We'd go down and visit them on Sundays and go home. That's one of the first memories I have. Yeah, there was a house that's still there in Bountiful. And I raised up in. I don't know how to describe it.
Was it just a one-level house or was it a two-level?
No, it was a one level house, but we dug the basement out some and made a bedroom down there for my brother and I. We slept down there with no heat,
Oh my gosh.
while it was cold.
Oh yeah.
How many, like, bedrooms or bathrooms did it have?
One.
One? Okay. What, can
I
you
might
describe?
say back in those days it was mighty good to have one.
Yeah.
A lot of people had to go outside.
What was, can you describe the neighborhood that you grew up in?
Well, it was a city atmosphere, but we had horses and sheep in our backyard. And,
Jaden.
it wasn't a lot of big city business. Small city, the way it would be. We used to play kick the can. We had the street light out there, and street signs, and we plowed the streets in the winter time. And on the sidewalks, we used to have a fellow that had a snowplow made out of wood, out of heavy wood in a V shape. He had a hook up for a horse. The horse, he walked up and down the streets and plowed the streets so people could walk on them back in those days.
That's awesome.
That'd even be handy today because it's long further
Yeah.
around.
What about your parents? When were they born?
When they born? Back when Santa Claus was born.
Are they from here originally?
Uh, yes, my mother was born down here, and in a house, wasn't the house I was born in, but they had another little old house, and they built before. It was kind of a small house that they lived in, my grandparents, and then they built this better house, moved into it. And my father, he was born in Bountiful. He was an only child, and born and raised in Bountiful.
I didn't realize that Grandpa was an only child.
Yeah,
That's cool.
he was spoiled. Yeah, he was really spoiled because Grandma, I guess, was so grateful to have him that she gave piano lessons and things, made extra money, and they gave him everything he ever wanted. He had a team of horses himself. He used to deliver papers. He had a paper route, and when the weather got a little colder, anything, why he wouldn't go. Grandpa would get up and go and deliver the papers for him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was had everything he ever wanted. And I think it was we often discuss the fact that he kind of ruined him because he had more things than he wanted.
Was your mother or your father more strict?
My mother was more strict.
That's usually how it is.
And my father could be strict too, though.
Yeah.
My father had a different way of being strict. He quit talking to you.
He'd quit talking to you.
And just give you a cold shoulder. And that hurts too when you don't know what people are thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. What was your father's job?
Well, my grandfather, gotta go back into other history now. My grandfather went to the University of Utah for a few years. He took English, one of his subjects. And a man started a newspaper in Bountiful. And he needed an editor because he didn't know how to spell good or anything. And he asked my grandfather to come and be his editor. So he went to work for him. And after a few years, he came to my uncle and my grandfather and said, "John, I want to sell you the paper. I'm going to get out. I'm taking a job in Evanston, Wyoming, digging ditches." And we left the paper to go dig ditches. We made more money. So with that, my father was then raised in the newspaper business. And when he got old enough, they bought a linotype, and he went to San Francisco and learned how to run the linotype by himself. And that was quite an adventure for him because he'd never been out of Bountiful. And so to go to San Francisco would be a big thing.
How many brothers or sisters do you have?
4 brothers and 1 sister.
Did Grandpa want a lot of kids because he was an only child?
No, I don't know. We never discussed that. I think it was Mother. Mother said one time, "I'll have as many children as the Lord let me have."
That's cool.
And it stopped her. I mean, the last one, she had so much trouble that mother died, and so did the baby.
Yeah.
And that's Niles. And Niles is having trouble today. He's really having a fight. We're afraid we lost him. He's the youngest one in the family, but he's got the worst health right now.
Yeah. Are you the middle kid?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
I'm supposed to know better.
Oldest.
I'm supposed to know better.
Did you know your grandparents?
Yes, I did. And I loved my grandparents on both sides. My grandma Stahle was a big woman, and she loved to cook, and she loved us children. She used to put on little plays in Bountiful in the theater there. Grandpa, somehow or other, he got involved in the movies and acting, and then she liked to put on plays. And Grandma involved all of us neighborhood kids as actors. We had to put on plays.
That's
He
so
used to
fun.
be in 'em. He used to be in her place.
Yeah.
I remember one play we were in, and I was the sheriff. And I was supposed to arrest this boy, and he was bigger than I was. And he didn't want to be arrested. And I had to fight, and I couldn't get my handcuffs to come out of my pocket. And the crowd was just roaring, because I was having such a time getting him down to arrest him. And I remember that. Grandma used to say, there's nobody out there, don't worry about who's out there. If you worry about who's out there, you can't act. So I remember that. His parents kicked him out. They couldn't afford to raise him. They kicked him out, and their uncle had a beer tavern there by the railroad. And they went to work for him for a little bit, but he finally fired them too, because the workers would get off their shifts at the railroad yards. They'd come over and they'd want to buy the boys beer, and they refused to drink beer. And so he said he was losing business because they wouldn't drink beer. So they left and they came west. At least Grandpa did. I don't know about his brother. I don't think he did. They came west, and Grandpa did many different things. Met Grandma, she was the only girl in her Howard family that I can recall. I used to know all the Howards. They're all upstanding people. County commissioners and people of note. So they were well-known people. Grandma had been to the University of Utah for a few years or so too. So she was called on by everybody in the community to do different things because she was more educated. Grandpa Schultheis, he had sugar diabetes bad too, and he had to have his leg taken off, and they took it off at the knee, so he went around with a stub. And he got laid off he worked at ZCMI as a janitor, and they laid him off because they said he couldn't do his job anymore. So he used to go out in the fields and pull weeds out of the garden and take them to the pigs, feed the pigs. Can you imagine that with a stub leg? Boy,
That would be
the
different.
things they put up with they were really hard-paid people. And Grandpa Stahle lived to be 89. Grandpa Schultheis didn't live to be that long. Grandma died while we were in Fallon, Nevada. Grandpa Schultheis.
Let's see, she was 83.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe up in the 80s. Mother was 83 when she passed away. Father was 86. And I'm 86.
I can't believe you're 86, Grandpa.
I can't believe the Black Reaper's just around the corner here.
You say that, but I think you're going to live to be like 120.
Yeah. Anyway, you're asking some good questions. I'm rambling on other things.
Did you have any pets when you were a kid?
Yes, I did. We like to have dogs and things around. I had a little dog Mother called him Pinchy. Finally, he was this little thing, a pinch, about as big as he was a pinch. So she had called him Pinchy, and we named him Pinchy. He got hit by a car, and he was hurt bad, and I put him in the back of the truck when I was 16. And I had to go clear to Murray. Back in those days, the roads were not fast like they are now. I got there, and when I got there, he just kicked his last when the vet come out to look at him. I felt terrible to think I'd driven all that way and I wasn't able to save him. But I loved dogs. I had one after another when they were like that. I had a dog too that had distemper. That's a disease they get. and they actually starve to death. They can't eat, they just don't have any desire to eat, and they starve to death. You can save them if you'll force feed them. And I force fed him, and when I found out what you do, 2 or 3 times a day, and saved him. They get over it if they live long enough, they get over it. So that's another dog I had. I've never had many cats.
Then you had pigeons.
Yeah, I had pigeons. I had several pigeons. I had a coop that I had pigeons in. Cat got in and killed them all one night. I felt redeemed when I killed the cat.
I didn't think you'd ever have a cat again, but he loves Molly.
What did you used to do for fun?
For fun. We used to get together quite often, members of our family, my cousins, like you guys. We used to get together every Sunday. Our parents, Shultz members, used to get together down there, and they had a farm, a 30-acre farm down here. And they had cows and stuff, and they had a barn out. And we used to go out and play tag and things, and go play in the barn and do different things. So that was most of our fun was just playing with friends and neighbors. I was 9. She refused to have them cut her leg off. She had diabetes so bad, and her leg had got gangrene in it, and she wouldn't let him take it off.
Yeah.
She died from
Shame on
my grandpa Schultz. I admire my grandma and grandpa Schultz. My grandpa Schultz was him and his brother lived in Missouri, and his parents kicked him out. They couldn't afford to raise him. They kicked him out, and their uncle had a beer tavern there by the railroad, and they went to work for him for a little bit, but he finally fired him too because the workers would come off, get off their shifts at the railroad yards. They'd come over and they'd want to buy the boys beer, and they refused to drink beer. And so he said he was losing business because they wouldn't drink beer. So they left and they came west. At least Grandpa did. I don't know about his brother. I don't think he did. They came west and Grandpa did many different things. Met Grandma, but she was the only girl in her Howard family that I can recall of. I used to know all the Howards. Were all upstanding people, county commissioners and people of note. So they were well-known people. Grandma had been to the University of Utah for a few years or so too. So she was called on by everybody in the community to do different things because she was more educated. My grandpa, Schultz, he had sugar diabetes bad too, and he had to have his leg taken off, and they took it off at the knee, so he went around with a stub. And he got laid off he worked at ZCMI, and he was a janitor, and they laid him off because he couldn't do his job anymore. So he used to go out in the fields and pull weeds out of the garden and take them to the pigs, feed the pigs. Can you imagine that with a stub leg? Boy.
That would be difficult.
They put up with it. Oh, they were really hard people. But Grandpa Stahle lived to be 89. Grandpa Schultz didn't live to be that long. Grandma died while we were in Fallon, Nevada. Grandma Schultz.
See, she was 83.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe up in the 80s. I can't remember what we used to do that way, so I don't talk about it much anymore. We used to play Run Sheepy Run too. I don't remember some of the things we did.
Kick the can.
Yeah,
That's still around today.
I bet.
We still play kick the can in.
Run
you're-
Sheepy Run, don't they have it too?
I don't know what Run Sheepy Run is, but there's probably a take off of it, and it's just called
You
something
go
else.
hide, and then somebody tries to find you. And if he gets close to you, you run to the where the place is, the light, probably, that's where we had the light post. And if you got there before he did,
You were safe.
You were safe.
Ghost in the graveyard.
Ghost in the graveyard. That's what we call it now.
Did you get an allowance?
No. My allowance was working for the family.
Yep.
I used to run shows. When I turned 16, my father said, now you can take the truck and go to, I think it was Syracuse, and run a show. 16. I was given that responsibility. And boy, the Bountiful Theater burned down because the guy running there didn't pay attention. That film was like a plastic, I forget what they call it. It was very flammable. And once it started on fire, boy, you just better run. You can put it out. And I had cans of that film that we carry in. I used to carry the machines in, set them up, run the show, take them back down, put them out in the truck, and go home. So when I look at that, I think kids today don't have responsibility like that. They need it. They need it. It didn't hurt me. I got a kind of a mark on my arm where carrying those heavy machines, steel kind of cut my arm a little bit and left a little mark. But it just reminds me of what I did one time.
Yeah. How many theaters did you guys have?
Well, Father finally had 3 trucks.
Nice.
We were running shows all over in wards. People used to come when they paid their budget, ward budget, they get it free. They didn't, they could pay 15 cents or 20 cents
Yeah.
and get to go to the show.
That's awesome. Now it's like $10 to go to the
Oh,
show, and
yeah.
that's just your ticket.
What kind of school did you go to?
I'd like to say one that I liked, but I didn't. I went to Stoker School, elementary school, and you don't know where that is, do you? It's on, we used to live on First South and First West in Bountiful. So we were almost right in the center of town. And the school we went to was just up the street from that. So it was about Second East, I think, and Second South. I climbed that flagpole. It was a big flagpole that way up to the top of the building. It was out in front of the building, but I mean it was taller than the building. I climbed the top of that thing in our lunchtime 7 times.
7 times?
7 times at lunchtime. And then one time I was going up, I saw that what's his name? One that's in charge of the school,
The principal?
principal, was looking out the window at me as I was climbing up. I thought he'd come out and yell at me, but he didn't. Crazy kids do crazy things, but I climbed that thing 7 times in that lunchtime. Another experience, if you want to experience in the school, one morning I got up and I refused to go to school. My mother said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I can't go to school. I'm supposed to learn," and I had a hard time remembering things like that. I still have a hard time remembering some things. And I just remember now that I had. So, you know how they used to say, you learn this here, and then go down the rows. And then the next day was my turn to get up and talk about that, what I was supposed to learn, and repeat it. And I knew I couldn't do it. And I wasn't going to go. I wouldn't go. So Mother said to Father, you take Howard to school. And you talk to the principal. So he went to school with me and he talked to the principal. The principal never said any more. I didn't have to do it.
Nice.
He's been spoiled ever since.
No, I wasn't spoiled, but
He was spoiled in his family, boy.
well, I don't remember any other time that I've had something like that. school is doing something else. My school, I say today, I wished I could have gone to more school. I could have, I'd have wanted to, and I got out of the Navy. I could have gone on the GI Bill. I did do some, I went to printing. Others got education, teaching school or something, and they died as school teachers. Some 2 or 3 of them have died now, they're school teachers that I went to school with. But I was a tough one as a student, let alone being a teacher.
In what branch of the military did you serve in?
Navy.
Navy. Okay.
I drank a lot of water.
What war or wars did you serve in?
What?
What war or wars did you serve in?
War. Well, I only lived to be long enough to be in World War II.
What did you do?
Well, you want to know everything I did?
You were on a ship most of the time, weren't you?
Yeah. I was in the Navy 2 years. That's 24 months. Actually, 26 months and about 14 days. And out of that 2 years, I spent 18 months overseas. And most of my service, after I got out of boot camp, was down around the Philippines and that area down there. Saw a lot of water. What I did was I was a yeoman, which is a clerical worker, as my job. That came about by a yeoman. I didn't start out to be a yeoman. A yeoman is a clerical worker. And whenever the ship would leave port, we pull into ports. Whenever we left the port, every man that was on the ship had to be, his name had to be recorded and then left as we left. So there was a record of everybody that was on that ship in case something happened to it, happened to us. So that was one of the big responsibilities we had as yeomen, to making sure that everybody in their serial number and everything was that done. And it's done at the last minute, boy, you're just, little typewriters are just smoking to get that all done so you can leave the ship. Now when your ship leaves, there's a pilot that goes with you. It takes you out of the immediate area you're in, out to where you're going out to sea. And that pilot will stay with you till you get out so far. Then he leaves. And we had to make sure that our records was with that pilot when he left. Well, when I went into boot camp, I served in Camp Farragut, Idaho. And boy, I can tell you, they know how to whip. You got me sentimental now. I get like this and I can't talk in church either.
That's what memories do to you.
When I got up in Farragut, Idaho, I found out that another man from Bountiful, named William Mann, I knew the family. Of course, I got to know him a lot better when I was there. But when we graduated out of there, I was just a seaman. And that means they can use you where they want to. And I see some Heavenly Father's work in my future.
Where did you get married?
Well, let's finish the other part first. We had a leave to come home for 2 weeks, I think it was then. We came home and then I had to report to Portland, Oregon for further assignment. When I got there, we were putting a ship in commission. And that means we had to put everything on it, in it. And there was several hundred men lined up for muster. And they called out names to make sure everybody was there. And they called my name out wrong. And I didn't recognize it. They called me Stahle. And I didn't answer. When they got all through, they said, there's one guy that didn't show up here, Mr. Hooley. And if your name hasn't been called, raise your hand. So I raised my hand. I said, you can't, my name's not Stahle, it's Stahle. He said, well, okay, now you're here anyway. But after that, they said, you stay here. You and one other guy, stay here. And from there, I was assigned, out of all those people, I don't know why, I was the only one that they called that I knew of to record stuff going on the ship. I sat there with all the other guys were grunts, they were carrying stuff out, in and out. And I stood there with a little black little pad, and I marked off the stuff as they took it on, make sure we had it. So that was a pretty sweet job. And we put the ship into commission, and then we rode down the Columbia River out to sea. First time I'd ever been out like that.
Did you get sick?
No, I felt woozy once when the ship was really rocking.
Yeah.
But I could tell that we were out. The water was a little different than otherwise. But I saw guys that really got sick.
Yeah.
But he was telling you in the thick of the battle, and what happened to your ship?
You maybe don't want to know that.
Was that the time when it got hit by a torpedo?
No, we didn't get hit by a torpedo. Just wonder we didn't. We made our own tragedy. We run aground.
Oh no.
Yeah, and we were stuck out there. It was wartime. The Japanese were around. Do you want all this stuff?
Yeah.
It's great.
We were sailing along by ourselves, and all of a sudden it was just starting to get light in the morning. And I was a talker. That was my job on it. I didn't mention that to you. When you have sea details, when you're going to go somewhere or do something, you have different work you do. Then when you get your work details, then you go to a different job. And being a yeoman was a different job. So I was a talker. And I don't know how to call them, other than I had headphones on and my microphone here. And I was on the bridge where the captain is. There's two sides to the bridge, places where people can stand out there. And if anybody sees anything, you're connected together with all the other people all out through the ship, both sides, to watch to see if they can see any submarines or anything happening. And if they do, they talk into their thing, and that comes to me, and then I tell the captain. So, why am I getting into all that? I can't remember now.
Your tri-state running around?
Yeah, it was starting to get light, and I was a talker. I was on duty. You're on 4 hours and then off 8. 4 on and off 8. And mine happened to be from 4 in the morning till 8. So I was up there, and it was starting to get light. All of a sudden, one guy yelled out, "Hey, I can see fish down there!" And then the ship started to shaking like this, and we came to a stop.
Oh my gosh.
And we couldn't figure out what was the matter. We were sitting ducks. What we've done is we just walked right up onto a coming island, more or less. Out there in the Pacific, that's how Hawaii was built, was through a volcano. This stuff comes up from the ground and builds up. And it's not chartered because it's never, now it's chartered because we bought it. but it wasn't chartered
Yeah.
before. But, so we were stuck there. We reported to the captain what we saw, and we could see islands not too far off, a mile or so away. We could get to that if we needed to. But we were sitting ducks. If a submarine was coming there, he'd have a good time. We couldn't move a bit. We had Higgins boats. We were a troop transport. We carried troops right into the battle. Some troops were ferried them across from New York to England or something like that, but we didn't do that. When they loaded on our place, they were going into battle. And so we were coming back from somewhere, so we didn't have a lot of troops on. But we did have Higgins boats that they get in to ride into the shore. You see them on TV. We had those on there. They put those out there and tried to pull us off. With 5 or 6 of those, or 8 of them pulling. They couldn't move us a bit. See, we were probably at high tide when we went on to it. And then the tide went down and that left you high, worse than ever. And so when the tide came up, we tried again, but they had to get tugs. I don't know where they came from, but they came from somewhere. They took them 3 days to get there.
Oh my
You had to sit
gosh.
there for 3 days?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
And they were taking the pig iron out of the ballast and throwing it over the side to see if it could lighten the ship enough to
Yeah.
pull off. But it didn't do it. Not till the tugs got there. When the tugs got there, they had enough power they could do it. So the captain was transferred after that. Whenever something happens like that, the
Captain's
gets
transferred. Oh my gosh.
So if something was gonna happen to the ship and you transferred to another ship?
Oh, no, well, yeah, Japanese, we were in convoys. There was maybe 20 ships in a convoy. And there was convoys as far as I could see. Ahead of us, way ahead of us and behind. And our ship was the one that was the Commodore, the one who's in charge of that whole 20 ships, was on our ship. And we were on the right side of all the ships and traveling. And as we traveled along, I could hear Japanese were hitting the convoys ahead of us. They had airplanes trying to fight with them too, and you could hear them talking. Look out, he's on your tail, look out. He got him, there he goes. And pretty soon we knew we were going to be going into it, and so they would be there somewhere. And we went along. I didn't realize it for a while, but during the night, we transferred to the ship on the outside. They took the outside and we come in one. Well, as we were going along, like I said, we have meals, three meals a day. And so they said condition B, where half the crew can go eat. And I was relieved, and here I am up on the bridge. And I come down, you come down the outside of the ship or you can come down the inside of the ship. There's ladders both ways. I came down on the inside for some reason. And as I did, they sounded an alarm and I heard airplanes out there, a couple of them. And I come down the main deck, I stepped out, looked out, and there was a Japanese plane, 2 of them, and one of them dropped his bombs on that ship, on the side that we were at. The other one dropped his bombs, but they didn't do anything. Neither one of them's bombs did anything. But this one fella, he just curved up and around, and machine guns were firing, hitting the steel decks, and they were bouncing around, and just dove into the ship. It was right where I would have been.
Yeah, right where
if
you were
I'd have been
standing.
there. And I was relieved, so I didn't have to be there. And it killed about 50 men on that ship. Where it hit. And I counted that as one of my blessings, boy. 'cause I was down there, and we weren't hurt. Well, that's another one. Let's get into something I don't cry about.
I think marriage is the next step. You cry about that, right?
Yeah,
You know, this is the first time I've heard this in all the years we've been married.
Really?
Never ever talk about it. Never talk about it.
You've seen a lot of things, Grandpa.
So, when and where were
well,
you
you know,
married?
another time I said a prayer. The ship's going like this all the time. And you get to a point where you gotta get your sea legs. That's what they say, sea legs. And I didn't have my sea legs. I wasn't sick. Boy, we got new guys on the ship and they went down and ate and they come up and they go on the windward side where the wind's blowing into them. They let it all go and it'll.
Those are the newbies that don't quite understand how it works.
He was so sick he didn't care. He was just getting rid of it. Boy, and I had to laugh. I felt sorry for him. But I had to laugh. But I didn't have my sea legs. And this one time, I just said, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. This ship's just got to stop. And shortly after that, why, I got so I learned to walk with it and so forth, and then it didn't bother me. And we got in some really rough weather, boy. I saw we had 50-foot waves coming up, the wind blowing. I looked out there and I said, if the ship goes down, I go with it.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you're going to live out in the way that so well it was. A lot of the ships, you see when you're like that, your ships can't go where the waves are rolling. You go straight into them.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't go straight into them, you can capsize. And the destroyers and so forth that was along with, they had to go straight into it. They were worried about capsizing. But we managed to keep going where we were. But boy, it was rough. You could stand at the bottom of wherever you was going, and when the ship rolled, if you waited, when it comes down, you can jump all the way down. When it goes up, you wait, and it'll throw you up. So you learn to do that. You don't notice it now, and I think the ships are different now too. But back in those days, when you saw a sailor walking down the street, and he'd wait for the sidewalk, he'd walk up the sidewalk and wait for it to come up. He just got off his ship. He just got off his ship and kept waiting for that sidewalk to come up.
Oh, that's
Did you ever
awesome.
do that?
And one time or two, I did like that, yeah. Well, just to get married, I met this girl I quite liked in school, and I met her in junior high in Bountiful, and in high school. And she wrote to me. I finally went out with her a time or two. I really had I took a box of chocolates to her on Valentine's Day with a heart shaped box, and I took it to the door, and her father came to the door and he said, "What, another one?" I thought, "Oh my criminy." She wasn't there, so I didn't give them to her, I gave them to him. He made me feel bad thinking I was another one. So she wrote to me, and she wrote quite a bit, and I felt like that we knew each other. When I came home on a leave one time for a week, and we talked marriage. I told her, I said, would you be buried in the temple? And she said, yeah. She didn't think anything about that. And that to me meant that she was my kind of person. But I don't believe that she believed it. She said it because it was of the moment, as it proved to be later in life. But anyway, I went back. We came home for repairs and supplies. So it's a long ways from Hawaii. It takes a week away to travel from Hawaii to America, under the bridge. So when we were back, they decided it was going to be a couple of days longer than what they planned. And so if you lived within, I can't remember how many miles now. I know we were within that limit. Utah was within that limit, Salt Lake City was. So I got to go home for 5 days, 3 days. I guess it was 3 days. But wasn't very long anyway. But I knew I had preferential treatment for airline seat if I needed it, and I relied on that. So I waited, stayed as long as I could, and I went down to get a airplane seat, and I was bumped. I couldn't get the seat, so I had to be back by 8 o'clock the next morning, and I knew I was going to be late. My ship was in Oakland, and I had to find the ship when I got there. I didn't know where it was at. So I was about 4 hours late when I walked there. And the master at arms, when you walk on the ship, you're under arrest, so go see the captain. So I went to see the captain, and he set your trial date, so and so later. Which they did. They confined me to 3 days confinement to the ship, which was terrible pain right then, because you would like to get out and go around, and you would become like. Didn't bother me that much because I didn't like nightlife out there anyway. But with that time, I had talked to her, and then when I got back and found out we were going to be there a few more days, I called home, or called her and asked her to come out. We'd get married in Oakland. And I called Mother, and Mother said, okay, so she came with her, and they came out to Oakland, and we were married there. I only had 1 day. We were married, and I had that night, and then I had to be back to the ship at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I was. I wasn't late that time.
And so I'm still reeling over the fact that I found out that Grandpa has an arrest record somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, what's your next question?
This is the last one.
And there was several hundred men lined up for muster. And they called out names to make sure everybody was there. And they called my name out wrong, and I didn't recognize it. They called Mr. Hooley, and I didn't answer. When they got all through, they said, there's one guy that didn't show up here, Mr. Hooley. If your name hasn't been called, raise your hand. So I raised my hand. I said, you can't, my name's not Sahuli, it's Stahle. Well, okay, now you're here anyway. But after that, they said, you stay here. You and one other guy, stay here. And from there, I was assigned, out of all those people, I don't know why, I was the only one that they called that I knew of to record stuff going on the ship. I sat there with all the other guys were grunts, they were carrying stuff out, in and out. I sat there with a little black, little pad, and I marked off the stuff as they took it on, make sure we had it. So that was a pretty sweet job. And we put the ship into commission, and then we rode it down the Columbia River out to sea. First time I'd ever been out like that.
Did you get sick?
No, I felt woozy once when the ship was really rocking.
Yeah.
But I could tell that we were out. the water was a little different than otherwise, but I saw guys that really got sick.
But he was telling me you were in the thick of the battle, and what happened to your ship?
They maybe don't want to know that.
Was that the time when it got hit by a torpedo?
No, we didn't get hit by a torpedo. It's a wonder we didn't. We made our own tragedy. We run aground.
Oh no.
Yeah, and we were stuck out there. It was wartime, the Japanese were around. Do you want all this stuff?
Yeah, that's great.
We were sailing along by ourselves, and all of a sudden it was just starting to get light in the morning, and I was a talker. That was my job on it. I didn't mention that to you. When you have sea details, when you're going to go somewhere or do something, you have different work you do. Then when you get your work details, then you go to a different job. And being a yeoman was a different job. So I was a talker, and I don't know how to call them other than I had headphones on and my microphone here, and I was on the bridge where the captain is. There's two sides to the bridge, places where people can stand out there. And if anybody sees anything, you're connected together with all the other people are just all out through the ship, both sides, to watch to see if they can see any submarines or anything happening. And if they do, they talk into their thing, and that comes to me, and then I tell the captain. So, why am I getting into all that? I can't remember now.
Your tragedy,
Oh,
running aground?
Yeah, it was starting to get light, and I was a talker. I was on duty. You're on 4 hours and then off 8. 4 on and off 8. And mine happened to be from 4 in the morning till 8. So I was up there, and it was just starting to get light. All of a sudden, one guy yelled out, "Hey, I can see fish down there!" And then the ship started to shaking like this, and it came to a stop. And we couldn't figure out what was the matter. We were sitting ducks. What we'd done is we just walked right up onto a coming island more or less. Out there in the Pacific, that's how Hawaii was built, was through a volcano. This stuff comes up from the ground and builds up, and it's not chartered because it's never. Now it's chartered because we were on it, but it wasn't chartered before. But so we were stuck there. And we reported to the captain what we saw, and we could see islands not too far off, a mile or so away. We could get to that if we needed to. When we were sitting ducks, if a submarine was coming there, he'd have a good time. We couldn't move a bit. We had Higgins boats. We were a troop transport. We carried troops right into the battle. Some troops ferried them across from New York to England or something like that, but we didn't do that. When they loaded on our place, they were going into battle. And so we were coming back from somewhere, so we didn't have a lot of troops on. But we did have Higgins boats that they get in to ride into the shore. Well, when we marched in parade at the end of our graduation in Farragut, Idaho. I was up there 8 weeks. 8 weeks. We had one man that you're responsible to when you're there, or he's responsible for you, and he teaches you. And you do things you didn't know you could do. Put you through a lot of exercises, of course, build you up. When we want you. This is true. We marched at the end. We were in unison. We were smart. We were together for all that in 8 weeks. We were men. We hadn't been seasoned, but we were men in the sense that we were a fighting crew. Now there's a couple of thousand men out there in your parade. You're just one group in maybe a dozen. There was a lot of men that were in training there. So when you graduate, you prayed for the last time. And I felt like we had accomplished something. We never did go, we never had to march or anything like that again after that. I had an uncle in the Army, Air Corps, and he was up in Washington, and I was up there in Washington for a few days. And I went over to see him. When I got over there, he was marching. They were out marching. He'd been in the Air Corps for 2 years by that time, and they were still marching. And so I was glad that we didn't have to keep doing that in the Navy. 3 meals a day. It was said that in the Navy that when the Navy personnel were traveling on a train, when it's noontime, they stopped the train in the nearest place to eat.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. I'm sorry I get emotional.
These are important stories for you to tell. Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
If you could say anything for your kids to hear and your grandkids to hear, what would it be?
Pertaining to life, I'd say get an education. I quit school in the 11th grade. And my teacher was so angry with me, my English teacher, that because I quit, that she refused to give me credit. Give me 10 and a half years only. 10 and a half years. And today is much worse. In my day, you learned a trade. You learned it. Not today, everything's electronic, and kids are just made for this electronic age. But you gotta have education to go with it. You just gotta have it. You can't do it the way I did. Now, you know what I am today, don't you? I'm a has-been.
No way.
Yeah. There's no job openings for guys like me. I can fix the old equipment. I can fix printing machinery. I can run it. I can run line types and stuff. No one needs those anymore. So I feel bad for the blacksmith. You know the blacksmiths. You've heard them in the shows where they're pounding the steel out for horseshoes and so forth. But blacksmiths were men who could do anything. They could make or fix anything. And that was a trade that a lot of them just picked up. And you could do that then, but you can't do it now. Education, and I say the Lord is true. He lives. I can't emphasize that too much. Because I hope these boys are planning on missions. I mean, this Mott's boy, he'll be coming home in February.
I know. Crazy.
And he just loves the people. He was raised in that Fallon, Nevada. Place that don't know much about black people or anything. There he went right in there. And he just learned to love those people. They learned to love him. And I know there's a feeling, if you're going to serve a mission, serve it with all your heart. Mont did. He was one of the few missionaries that would suck the eyes of a fish. And the people out there respected him for that. The other missionaries wouldn't do it. They respected him because he'd do that.
He did.
There's a few things I don't think I'd do, but military service is not bad for a person if they take it for the right reason. I learned, I saw young men get drunk for one of the first times and come back with their white clothes all dirty and bloody and things, and I thought, I'm glad I've taught better. And I won't bend my ideals for those kind of things.
Well, thank you, Grandpa, for letting us dredge up
Well,
old memories.
I thank you. You're the one that should have to be thanked, because what you've just done is a marvelous thing. The young man asked good questions and made me think.
Grandpa, what boat did you serve on in the Navy?
What boat, what ship did
Yeah.
I serve on? USS Barnstable. Barnstable's what it reads.
Okay.
But there's a place back east named Barnstable. And the women back there got together and bought a refrigerated water cooler and donated it to our ship. We had ice cold water in the South Pacific. I'll tell you, boy, that was
Oh, yeah.
a real,
That was something.
yeah. So, and I looked at it in a magazine. One of them's right over there. What is that?
National Geographic.
National Geographic. And there was a town, it showed a picture of some people from Barnstable, New York or somewhere back there. So there's an actual place. Our ship was brought back after I was drafted. Mother said, don't go one day before you have to. Go and be good, but don't go one day before you have to. You don't know what that one day will matter in your travels, and it did. It made a big difference. And so I waited till the last. In fact, I asked Uncle Dave if I could go out and work with the sheep for a while. This isn't part of what you asked me yet. But Mother said, you'll get a deferment because when you're raising animals, meat for the servicemen and that, but they're deferred for that. So I went out there. I was out there for 3 months. 3 months, I think. I'm getting sort of rusty on times. In October, deer hunting. I was always a deer hunter. I loved it when I was younger. And we lived for October. And it didn't bother me a bit when I was out there with them. I didn't care whether I hunted them or not. But when I was out there, first thing you know, well, after I was out there, period of time, I'll say. I'm sure it's 3 months. Well, Ross Howard, he was one of the relatives of Uncle Dave. He was bringing our supplies out of food and stuff. And he came out and said, got to take it back, Howard. I said, what you got? He said, the draft board decided they weren't going to defer you anymore. They deferred you one more time to get you back, but you got to go. Well, that time probably made more difference than any of us ever knew. Because when I went in, it was the first of the month. And the the guy, when you go in, they say, if you're eligible, you're eligible, you can take the Marines, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force. It wasn't an Air Force then, it was an Army Air Corps. You can take what you want. What do you want? I said, I want Navy. I'd always wanted the Navy. And the quotas were open. I had a friend, Frank Banger. He was drafted. He had to go in towards the end of the month. And the Navy was full, the Air Force was full. He had to take the Army. They didn't give him a chance to draft. And their life was spent on the ground, and they got malaria, and they had all kinds of problems because of where they had to live, because of what they were.
Yeah.
I got a taste of it because when our ship was out there, we were getting ready to load a bunch of tanks and things that had been used in one place in the Philippines. Now they won that war, so now they want to take the tanks back and use them again. And we were going to load them on our ship, and we were there to load them. And they had to have a radio man on the beach. Beach is Navy talk. Tell the people on the ship what was coming, so they could have them be prepared for it. And they have to, their ships are like airplanes. You get in rough seas and that stuff, if it's not tied down, boy, it can batter your ship to pieces, or the stuff. Anyway, they had me on the beach there for a week or 2 weeks. I had a tent to stay in. Boy, the bugs and stuff. The Philippines were terrible. Oh, flies. We were out in the water. We never had flies. We never had those kind of things. And I didn't realize for a long time how blessed that was, not to have to put up with that stuff. And I was watching these guys while they were walking along in a military group, in other words, in line and walking like this. And one guy broke the ranks and come over. He said, "Is there any water around here? I'm dying." I said, the guy said there was water in that 5-gallon can down there. And he picked it up and picked it up and he said, "Yeah, it's rusty, I can't stand it." And he threw it back down. So I thought, see, they had to put up with a lot of stuff I didn't have to put up with.
Yeah.
And I count that as a blessing. I said when I got in the Navy, I said, boy, there's a lot of these guys from inside, they're not even close to water. He said, that's where we get most of our people from. Guys want to be in the Navy because they don't have the water.
Yeah.
I was a sentry up in Seattle, wasn't Seattle,
Spokane?
Spokane, Washington, and I had the watch from 8 o'clock to midnight, and I was standing there. The ocean was come up there, what's that way, and in about 10 minutes, these what is it comes in?
Tide?
Tide comes in. About 10 minutes, the tide come in. The water was down about 19 feet in about 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
never realized it. I mean, that's something I didn't really realize. That's why sometimes people get trapped that way if they're around water and they don't know that happens to them. Some parts of the world you don't have much of a tide, but there they sure is. There was one night I had to be naughty.
I think it was one of the boys that on his 80th birthday, and I will never forget it, where he had his Navy picture, and he had the cake and a picture of him. Who was it? Well, anyway, he kept looking at that picture and he would not leave. He would not leave that picture of Grandpa. He says, I didn't know my grandpa was in the Navy.
I can't remember which one it was. Was it Corbin? Was it you, Billy?
I wonder if it wasn't Corbin,
I think it was
the
Corbin.
littlest.
Yeah, I think it was when Corbin was really little and he thought
And
that
he
was really
just,
cool.
he sat there, and I'll never forget it, just like this. And he says, I never knew my grandpa was in the Navy. But I think it was Corbin.
I think it was. Yeah, that's.
You know, I didn't touch land for a year. I didn't touch earth for a year. I was on the ship the whole time.
Really.
I had opportunities because they had recreation where you could go in some of those islands over there, and you'd be surprised. They're so beautiful, and the picture shows they're beautiful because they're taken care of. But they stuck us out in islands where there was nobody around, so we couldn't get in trouble. Give me a couple of cans of beer, and I gave mine away. And one time I went over and then I said, "This is not for me. There's just no fun. I don't find fun in coming over like this." I wasn't much of a ball playing and stuff like that. So I just stay aboard the ship, keep clean. One or two of the guys used to be pretty good swimmers. They'd dive off the side of the ship and swim that salt water, boy. You gotta wash off good when you get back.
Yeah. Oh, those were great stories. I love it. I might come back and ask you more sometime, because I'm totally fascinated by all of it.
Well, I tell you, I became a shellback too. Remember the shellback? That's I don't know, I get kind of tongue-tied talking about it. Kind of an organization. They initiate you in it when you cross the equator. In the old days, they used to take guys and throw them overboard and tie a rope around them and drag them under the ship. If they couldn't hold their breath long enough, they drowned. That's how severe they get when they did some of that. And they accused me of not shaving often enough. Of course, I didn't have much of a beard back in those days. But that was just something to accuse you of. And they said what they do is they get pieces of canvas. They get into a good strap, and then they wet it, and then they beat the tar out of you, make you go up down the ship, run down the ship. And if you try to run fast, they make you go back and go through it again.
Oh my gosh.
So you got to take a beating when you go through that. And it wasn't as bad for me anyway. I went on my knees and I went along, but I think people had passion for me, or compassion for me. Anyway,
Oh my gosh.
when I got through it, there's two things you get. One when you go through the equator, and one when you go through international date line.
Yeah.
So I went through both of them. I don't look any different.
I think that's a blessing.
Yeah. But I was going to say, down in that area, the sun is different because it's a different place. It shines down the water, and you can see way down in the water, clear blue water. And we were going along one day, and I happened to not have too much to do, and I walked up towards the front of the ship as we were cruising along, and I looked out, and then one great big shark came up to the top and saw the ship and dove right back down. I had a chance to see him.
That is so
He
cool.
he looked like he would make a good man-eater.
Wow.
But the water was beautiful, I would say that. You can't take that away from it, it's beautiful. It's even beautiful in Hawaii.
Oh yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been to Hawaii 4 times, 5 times I guess now. Once when I went over, we stopped in Hawaii, and all I could see when I got on the beach, they gave us 4 hours to go ashore. All I could see was hats, Navy hats and Army hats, all the streets, as far as you could see. Military. I said, so I found a motion picture theater, and I went and saw a show. And the next time we came through, I didn't do much. I walked around a little bit, I think. And I was there another time. When we went over, then when we come back, each time they stop in Hawaii. Somebody's got my phone number. That's my cell phone.
That's mine.
Oh, it
Ours must sound the exact same.
It does. Rings a bell. It does, buzzes too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of parts of the world, but I tell you, Bonnie says, well, why don't you want to go somewhere? I saw people in the Philippines. I saw the way they lived. I saw other things in other places, and there's no place like Utah. And the good old USA. Whenever a plane flew over us, we looked to see if it was ours or somebody else's. And you don't know that when you get to a ship and you see an American flag flying off the tail, back of it, it just gives you a warm heart feeling. You can't get away from it. And you know what you're fighting for is worth it.
But if you want to travel in your life, don't marry a military man.
Don't marry this way.
No,
Some of them
don't
maybe
want
like
to
it.
take anywhere.
Some of them like it, maybe, but I don't. I started to tell you one other story. I told you I was to cheat. Well, when you go to bed at night, if you got a night watch, from midnight to 4 in the morning, or 4 in the morning to late in the night, whatever it is, they have there's a fellow that stays on watch in your building. And it's his responsibility to come and wake you up. He needs to know where you're at so he can wake you up so you can end your watch. Well, I went to bed, and I couldn't sleep because I knew I'd have to get up in a little while. And when I got a responsibility like that, I can't sleep. If I do, I sleep so light that I wake up anyway. Anyway, I was laying there, and it was about time for me to have this guy come wake me up. He came and he woke up the guy in the next bed to me. Yeah, good. I don't have a yes, you do. I just kept my mouth shut. I stayed there and slept.
That's awesome.
You do what you have to do.